Yeah, AJ Mahar here. And by the way, if you like this video or you find something helpful or thought provoking, could you please remember to maybe subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell and all that good stuff, because we want to get this channel found a little more in the algorithm so that people like yourself who found it, if you're getting some help from these videos, then if you hit the subscribe button and the notification notify all button, the channel just might grow a little bit. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that myself, but like if only the channel would grow as fast as I. No, sorry. Anyway, please hit the subscribe so that we can get found in the algorithm more, and more people like yourself can find what it is I'm doing here. So, comment response here left on the video that I did some time ago. Borderline hoovers to re-ghost. What's the point, right? Because this happens to so many people. So the commenter said, my ex called me and was extremely depressed. He told me, this is a male BPD Ex, by the way, because there are men out there with BPD. Lots of them. So he told me he wanted to start things over with me, and that he wasn't thinking, and that he was thinking of not wanting his life to continue. And the commenter says, I buckled under the pressure and confessed that I loved and missed him too. We agreed to make a fresh start and go into relationship therapy, I guess the person might mean, like couples therapy, which, remember, pretty rocky road, really doesn't work if somebody with BPD hasn't already had a lot of their own treatment and done a lot of growing and changing and have a lot more self-awareness and be able to take personal responsibility. Otherwise, couples therapy is just like, throwing your money out the window, but more painful than just, I guess, maybe watching money blow out the window, if that made any sense. So the commenter then says, really sadly, less than 24 hours later, he ghosted me. Is this typical behavior for the BPD? Well, I guess one thing I'd like to make clear is there's no such thing as, like, quote, all typical behavior for people with BPD, because they're all individuals, and BPD is a spectrum, and there are some manifest type differences between women with BPD and men with BPD, but it's all sort of like in really substantiated patterns. And unfortunately, an ex coming back and hoovering you, and it's all the fantasy la la stuff. It's all that they know that you want to hear. And yeah, they might. So but look at the key thing this commenter says too. Well, how did she put that? Yeah, my ex called me, so there wasn't any no contact there, right? This is a slippery slope, people. You gotta think about if you've been ghosted, discarded, there's a breakup, you've been on off, it's just not working out. At what point are you gonna say it's enough already and I don't know how to deal with it if it's over? But that's what people like me and myself in general, I mean myself specifically, I'm out here, I'm not a we. I'm out here to work with those who might resonate with me, and if you want to make this change, it's not going to be easy. So this commenter said again, my ex called me and was extremely depressed, right? He told me he wanted to start things over because he maybe just didn't want to, be here without his ex. Well, that's like, I've said so much about this on this channel. What that is indicative of personally is the borderline Hoover. Watch that video. People got a kick out of how I said, beware of the borderline of hoovering. Because they always, pretty much always, more often than not, like a high percentage of the time, they hoover back when they need you. They hoover back when they need somebody, something. They hoover back, because they're depressed. They hoover back because, they're not sure they can continue to live their life. And so they hoover back and they're telling you this, and it's kind of like, there's big red flags again. But yeah, people's emotions are raw. This trauma bond thing's real tough, because even if people have been no contact for some time, had no contact for whatever reason, whether your choice or not, the trauma bond does not break. change, heal, or go away by itself. People, you really need therapy for this when you've been with somebody with BPD. And so what this person experienced was a borderline hoovering and borderline's hoover because they need something and they want something, and maybe they don't want to be alone, and maybe they're struggling to, not to still be here. Oh, they can be depressed. They can be like all kinds of different emotions and moods. What's that got to do with you? And the big red flag in these hoovers from your BPD Ex is they're always telling you something about how they feel. And it's like it's always an ask that you're going to take care of it, right? I mean, it's not talked about that way. But this person's ex, male BPD Ex, Hoover's back saying, I'm depressed and I just don't know if I can go on anymore and I'd really like to try again. Well, what part of that sounds really hopeful? You know? Other than, well, maybe, okay, they're talking to me again and I really want to get back, but like people are skipping over what they're actually saying. Like, I can't be alone, or I don't feel like I want to be here anymore. I'm so depressed. I'm fill in the blank, says the Hoover and borderline. And you're like, oh, well, and they want to try again. And so you miss, again and again, people do this. You miss those red flags of like, calling because hoovering, wanting to start over because depressed, because doesn't want to be here. So anyway, and then this commenter's situation. So then they decide, because people have feelings, you're going to have feelings left for quite a while to get into therapy, to work on the codependency, to work on what you experienced in the relationship, and to do a deeper healing than only from the relationship, was you got to break the trauma bond. You got to stop being sort of poised in the sense of needing, whether you're aware of it or not, or wanting that intermittent reinforcement again. So this commenter probably got intermittent reinforcement briefly, and very briefly, and then why would he just ghost? And I'm going to say him or her because I don't know if it's a woman or a gay man. I don't know. So why would this man with BPD be all like, I want to try again, and his need. That's why I'm depressed. Somebody help me, like do something about this with you. That's all the subtext of the unconscious is not spoken about. And then the person's like, oh, good, we could try again. And you're not listening to the words that they're actually saying and what it means. And then, so the other person opens up, says, yeah, I'd like to try again. I still love you, etc. Really vulnerable, really tender stuff. And then 24 hours later, he just ghosts this person. Well, that happens a lot. I can't say it's like, I guess it's typical BPD behavior, but only for a lot of people with BPD who are untreated or have the patterns of and haven't even been diagnosed. So I can't say that every single person with BPD would do this, but many, many, many do. So why is it likely when he hoovered and approached, he had a need, he had a want, he was scared of something, etc. So he was reaching out for like object other good mom or good dad, depending if it was another man or a woman. And then probably what happens is the mood state that the borderline X was in when they hoovered this commenter was one thing. And then probably within 24 hours, the mood state changed. Maybe something else happened. So maybe they just felt a little less depressed, or they felt temporarily a little bit okay or good about something. And the next thing you know, what about what you said to them? And what about, like, do they care about? No, they don't care about what you have to say. They don't care what you need. They don't care how you feel. And when I say that, I don't mean to paint all people with BPD. Well, they're not all the same. But I'm talking about the untreated, the not really well treated, the patterns of, and not even diagnosed, and they don't know what's going on. But still, they reach out and they do know something about this, each person in their own way, to some degree or other. They're reaching out because they want something from you, because of how bad they're feeling, etc. So, or how much they need you, or whatever they might say. So easily within a 24-hour period, like now this person bore their heart to the BPD Ex again, who's a male, and they were thinking, oh, we're getting back together. And, that's a whole lot of a big hit of intermittent reinforcement right there. And then suddenly within 24 hours, ghosted again. Well, because his mood state changed, because his needs changed, maybe because somebody else walked by him and he followed them. I'm just saying, somebody else was kind of out there, and maybe he did the Hoover. He came a hoovering to this person, this borderline male came a hoovering to this commenter, maybe because they already had something going on with somebody else, and maybe there was like a breakup there. Maybe there's like a trigger and like a whole deal there. And so then they come back like a wounded puppy, because you got to listen to what they say and what they're promising. And, if they're coming back like it's days later, weeks later, even it could be a couple of years later, I mean, what's going to have changed? These people, when they go to therapy, I don't mean these people in a pejorative way, right? People with BPD, when they go to therapy, it's going to take a long time for a lot of change to happen, self-awareness to grow, finding the self, all that stuff. And in a way that it becomes a consistent, congruent thing for them over time. So likely the person with BPD was having an on-off with somebody else or something like that. It could have even been a favorite person or friend. Doesn't have to be that they're always, significantly into something that involves, physical relations with somebody or whatever the case often is. So the point is, something changed really quickly for that person to where what they felt when they came a hoovering, they didn't feel for too much longer after that. And so it's like the way that they will hoover you and reach out, it's all about them. It's all about what they need. It's all about what they want, etc. And they might not even be consciously aware of everything to do with what's really going on for them. And they don't think about what they're asking you for, right? They don't think about like how this borderline male ex didn't think about how this commenter was feeling when they shared, because I don't know if it's a he or she. It might be a she, right? But it could be a gay man. So I'm just saying. When they shared, oh, I miss you and I still love you too. And then, okay, I'm here. Let's do this. And that's a lot of vulnerability, and it's giving a lot more, right? Not recognizing the red flag of all the needy reasons why the Hoover happened in the first place. So the mood changes, something changes with somebody they were having a hard time with, depending on how long it's been since you had contact from them, etc. But there's all these different things that can change. And so what really happens is they no longer, like they were going to use you again. Okay, so like, I feel this way, I feel that. Borderline comes over and saying, I feel this, I feel that. Oh, I so want to like try again. They might say, I need you. They might just say, oh, I know, I understand now. I could do so much better. I read a book. I don't know. I listened to a video, something that doesn't mean anything in terms of their ability to change. And you miss all that because you're still trauma bonded and fantasy bonded. And then something shifts and they're like, discard, ghost, gone, because you're not really being connected to, seen or heard or loved by people with BPD untreated. And that's just the reality that so many people don't want to hear and don't know what to do with if they do think about it. And you need to be thinking more about yourself, because when you let the borderline come over in, it's always going to be what they need and what they want. And then if like within 12 hours, 10 hours, 2 hours, 24 hours, a week and a half, their feelings change, and or they get something somewhere else, whatever's going on for them, they'll be gone in a heartbeat again, because there is no commitment to you, because this person doesn't have a self that they can be, consistent or congruent with. So they come a hoover into you when they need and they want, and etc. And then when things change, so somebody else, another shiny toy, something else is going on, well, you, because they're not able to actually really understand how you feel or really care about how you feel, because they're so busy with what they feel. Oh, I'm feeling horrible. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling scared because I'm alone. I'm angry. I'm this. But the borderline, in a different way from the narcissist, is me, 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 me. Can I come be with you now? Because like do for me, do for me, do for me. Help me, help me, help me. It's always there, and people just skip over it. And yeah, they can disappear in a heartbeat, or a really short time, 24 hours or shorter, and they can come and go like that often if you keep jumping at what you want in the intermittent reinforcement and not catching the red flag reality that they're not doing this. They're not even thinking about you. They're using you, especially when they come a hoovering. So is it typical? Unfortunately, for many people with BPD, it's as typical as breathing. They want, they need, they gotta have. There you are. I want to come back. I'm going to do this. Promises, promises, yada, 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 whatever might sound good you want to hear. Meanwhile, they got other people maybe in the background. They got other things going on. They got their favorite person. They got a friend. They got something, maybe another person that they're, spending some intimate time with. And maybe that person just said, hey, I can't take you anymore. Forget it. Or they had a blow up. They come over into you. You got to remember something, ladies and gentlemen. When you're in the trenches of this and you haven't done the work yet to heal and you're not no contact and you're going to be open to and you might want them back and all this hoovering that they're going to do, you have to realize no matter how you're feeling and how much it's compelling that you want the ex back, there's nothing there but more heartache, pain, and agony for you. And even with people who've had some treatment with BPD even with that, they probably, without years of treatment, still can't be coming toward you, hoovering you with you in mind, right? Because here's a key thing. When people with BPD are getting really better, and it takes years, when they've had a lot of therapy and they've gained self-awareness and they're working on finding this self inside and etc., they're not going to come a hoovering. Why? Because they'll learn more about that other people have feelings too, and it's not just all about them. And they'll start to have more understanding. Well, I can't just go back to somebody when I feel like it because maybe what about how I hurt them or how they feel? So these are people with BPD that don't have that self-reflection, don't have that self-awareness. They just come hoovering to you full force. Really, it's always like what you want to hear. So believable, so not reality. It's fantasy. So you have to be really careful. And this commenter, I just wanted to touch on really quickly here, said that they talked and, like they were getting back together, everything. And then he ghosts her, him or her. The male BPD ghosts the commenter within 24 hours. But they had also talked about what I believe the commenter meant in the way they said it was couples therapy. Please hear me if you've never heard me before on this. If you have a borderline hoovering you, nothing's changed. They're doing it out of their own needs. You're missing the red flags because you have, as a codependent, you have the need for the intermittent reinforcement. You don't want it to be over. You're not respecting yourself. You're not in control of your own emotions. And you go past the red flags time and time again. Many people do with these hoovers, etc. And then if you think you're going to get back and jump back in, and this person BPD has changed it all, no. And they're setting you up to use you. And I'm not saying everybody does that like calculatingly on purpose, but it's still kind of the same result. And so if you think you can get that ex back to go to couples counseling, it's all going to be okay. Please don't. Please don't. Just please disavow yourself of that right now because it's not true. It's not true. And it doesn't work. And is there any time that it might work? I hesitate to say this. Pretty much no, but only in cases where people with BPD have been in years of treatment. And even then, when the codependent is still a codependent, and the person BPD, lots of maybe different awareness, maybe learn some skills in DBT, maybe more. But the thing is, you're still a codependent. They're still somebody with BPD, whether they get further ahead. And couples counseling, it just still won't work. It doesn't work unless pretty much the codependent is healthier and the borderline's done so much therapy that it could work. And guess what? In more cases than not, then it's like people with BPD that really recover and they move forward. They don't look back, mostly. And the same is true for people with codependency that recover and break the trauma bond. People don't look back, people look forward. So just know if you're still looking back, if you're still waiting, if you'll take the Hoover, I'm a commenter, I mean no disrespect to you. I have so much empathy, compassion, what you just went through. But how are you going to help yourself, to the commenter, anybody that relates to this? How are you going to help yourself to not do this again? You might be somebody sitting there right now just wanting this Hoover to happen so bad from a BPDX. And why? Because what are you thinking? What is your fantasy? That they're going to come back, they're going to somehow be different, they're going to get it now, you're going to understand, it's all going to work out. What? Out of where? From where? From what? What change? And then you're going to go to couples counseling, and well, you know, like I'm a counselor and I work with couples sometimes. It never generally works out. But like the thing is, do you think that we have magic wands and such? Because we don't. And I just say it like it is. I mean, there's probably a lot more people I could work with in a couple situation, borderline and codependent. But if the person with BPD doesn't have a lot of therapy, and again, you got to remember, when I speak from personal experience, when people with BPD recover, they move forward. They do not look back. They won't be a hoovering you anymore because they don't need you anymore. And they will have learned how much damage they've done, and they will understand, and they will have worked their way to and through grief and remorse and all kinds of things that they don't understand when they're still a hoovering. So you have to take care of your heart. You have to take care of, you have to find self-respect for yourself. And more importantly, you need to get into a process of healing recovery. I'm out here to work with those that resonate with me. And I've been doing this work with clients for 35 years. And without that, you're not going to be able to break the trauma bond. And so every time they come hovering, you're going to get so hurt. Because borderlines of hoovering are borderlines using you. And it's that simple. And I know that so many people don't want to hear that. So when are you going to be there for you? When do you think you want to start a process of trying to work with someone? I work with people all the time. And you know what? Sometimes when they start working with me in sessions, yes, they disappear because what do I know happened? Oh, the ex hoovered and they got back. But you know what happens with a lot of those clients? It isn't that long before they're back booking their sessions again because, yep, they went back and it didn't work out again. And then we have to start all over again. I don't mind. I'm not judging people. I'm just saying it's so hard on all of you out there who can't and haven't broken the trauma bond and still believe in the fantasy call. We could get back together. We could go to therapy. You know, therapists are not miracle workers with magic wands. If a person with BPD can't even be in their own therapy and can't even work toward recovery and change and emotionally maturing and growing up, which a lot of that process is about for people with BPD in therapy, why do you think that a therapist is going to be able to help you, like the two of you? It just is a very elusive thing, that. So anyway, just know the borderline of hoovering is a borderline of using, is an unchanged borderline. Is a borderline with a lot of promises, maybe some charisma, somebody you really want back and you really want to try again. But you know, to understand why you really want to try again and or again and or again or still, is to understand that you really got to work with somebody. You really got to unpack that because that's coming from you. That's your fantasy bond. That's your codependent denial. That's not the person with BPD making you think, feel, or do anything. Those choices are yours. To keep letting them come back or to keep pursuing them, to get them to turn around to come back only to have it all blow up and be just more and more injurious each and every time. So think about that and take care.